So I ended up buying 5 vehicles for scrap. I'm literally going to be just picking them up and bringing them directly to the scrapyard. So they are going to be crushed, and that is about it. They have been sitting in these fields for years, some of them probably a decade or more. So they have been rusting out from the bottom, and they've been infested with mice and bugs, and just far beyond saving or doing anything with. This Ford Ranger, I start with that. Pulling it back, I could have extended my boom and pulled it around the corner, but I want to pull it back far enough where I can just get to the other side and hook it up from the front, because that's just where the engine is, where the weight is, and I like to put the weight on the wheel lift and less weight on the dollies whenever I can do that. So it is buried into the brush right there, so I pull it back far enough where once I have it back far enough that I can spin around to the front and not have to dig through the brush to get at it and, get it removed from that field area there. So here's just a picture of it loaded up on the truck after I pull it out. And it is ready to be going off to the scrapyard. Second one is this one. I had previously pulled it from a field, and I had placed it there. This is the one I went to second because I know I'd be coming back multiple times, and I wanted to get this one. It was next to one of the houses, and I didn't want to be operating too late at night that close to the houses, so I opted to get this one while there was still daylight. This one had a tree fall on it, and then it just got shoved back in a farm field and abandoned for years and years. At one point, it looks like somebody took the doors off of it. So there's really nothing that's usable on this. The body's kind of trash. The engine and transmission are probably bad by now. And the frame is, tweaked. All the body is just gone. After I pull it up off that hill, I want to pull it up the hill and not hook onto it and drive up the hill, because I have to drag it. The whole back end of it is trashed, and I don't want to put that strain on my transmission. I'm going to use the winch cables for what the winch cables are for, and not put extra stress on my truck. So I decide to come around to the corner here where this gravel part of the driveway starts, and that's a good enough spot to drop it onto the wheel lift and start hooking it up. You can kind of see where the tree fell on it. The windshield smashed in, the roof is caved in, and I'll walk around it in a little bit here and show you the rest of the damage that's on it. Now the back end is really messed up, and I don't want to mess around all day trying to get this dolly set up under it. So the easiest way for me on this truck is just to run the crane over it and use the crane itself to just lift the whole back end of the vehicle up so it's in the air. So that way I can lift the whole truck up, set up the dollies, and then drop the truck back down under them. Now when I start to lift it up, now this is why you do things slowly, you don't just rush into it. You'll notice that it wants to start tilting a little bit. It's pivoting on the wheel lift, and since we're leaned a little bit, it wants to kind of rotate down into the hill there. So no big deal. That back tire on the passenger side is dragging, so it's not really going to just swing wildly out of control. But I still don't want it to go any farther than it needs to go in order for me to lift it up and set up the dollies. So in order to keep it from swinging, I simply add a chain from the wheel lift to the truck, and that will prevent it from going any farther than the length of that chain there. So now I can just lift it up. Set up the dollies. Position them correctly so the truck's not sitting crooked on them. I want it to be dragging right behind me, not too far off to one side or the other. And then I can set the truck right down in the dollies. Easy peasy. So here is a view of this truck. You can just see how trashed and it's scrap is the best word for it. There's nothing functional or usable or savable on here. The condition of this vehicle is just gone. That's the best way to put it. It's just got to get crushed and got to get shipped off and made into something else. So keep in mind that the way that I am doing things for these vehicles, they're mine, they're scrap. So the stuff that I'm doing is not at all how you should be operating if you're doing winter recoveries or stuff on customer vehicles. This is just quick and dirty, get it done. I know my equipment, I know the load ratings, I know how everything functions in a safe manner. I know exactly how far I can push this before I put anything at risk. So obviously you want to do things safely. And this truck, my winches are twin 15,000 pound winches. My boom is 26,000 pound boom when it's retracted, and I'd have to look again, but it's somewhere between like 15 or 16,000 pounds extended. So I know my limits and I know how I can operate safely. So I know that I'm not going to be having any issues with the way I'm doing things. So just know your truck. Most tow truck winches, flatbeds, even the auto loaders, all the modern stuff is about 8,000 pounds. So this truck is a lot more capable than what a lot of trucks can handle, a lot of the light duty trucks. So just keep that in mind. This is not how you should operate. This is not a training video. This is not methods you should utilize if you're pulling vehicles that you actually care about. So next one is this Dodge Dakota. It has a transmission issue of some sort, and when it was parked probably 10 years ago, it might have been worth saving, but it's so rusted underneath and the mice have gotten to the wiring and everything is just beyond saving at this point. The front wheels or something in the front is locked up. So even though I have the transfer case in neutral and I have the gear selector in neutral, it's still not wanting to release and just roll. So that's why it's pulling more upwards instead of just kind of pulling out. So I'm going to put the straps on it so I can pull it out of the brush and the thistles and everything else that I don't want to dig through, especially at night, and pull it out into the more open area. Now that front driver's side tire on this truck was actually flat and off the rim. I was able to add air to it and able to seat it so it actually would sit on the dollies properly. And now that I have it into the open area a little bit, you can see that front tire, it doesn't really want to release. It should be rolling in neutral right now, it's just not for some reason. Now, the property owner said I could come back as late as I needed to. It wasn't going to disturb them at all to be grabbing these vehicles. But the runs are about an hour to the scrapyard and an hour back to where these vehicles are. So I'm literally at this property probably until 3:34 in the morning at the latest. So I want to be, while I'm there, I want to be as quick and quiet as possible. And I don't want to be messing around with stuff under there. I don't want to be messing around with the L-arms. I don't want to be using hammers to try to pound stuff in. Okay, so this Kia, I gotta pull it sideways. This thing's just like wedged in here. It's not moving. I'm just gonna pull it sideways so I can actually get at it. And it's a junk car, it's going to scrap, so if I damage anything or whatever, not a huge deal. So depending on the style of rim, you can actually pull on the rim to scoot a vehicle sideways. This one doesn't have a rim that I'm comfortable sending a strap through, so I opt to use a soft strap to some of the suspension components and just yank it sideways so I can get around that John Deere tractor. The John Deere tractor, he wanted to rebuild the carburetor and get a pin for whatever attachment was on the back. So I want to make sure I don't hit that and don't damage anything else on this property. Let's be real, nobody is looking for Kia Amante parts, so I don't care about any of the body work on this or anything like that. This car is just going to get crushed and sent off to get melted down into something else. So I have to pull it far enough to get that front end around the John Deere. And then I have to also be sure to pull it forward enough where that back tire of the Kia is in line with the front of that John Deere tractor sitting in the woods. So that way when I actually start pulling on it, that tire is going to be the pivot point for where it turns, and I know that I'm not going to hit it. It is dark. It's hard to see that green John Deere tractor at night through all that brush, especially looking out the mirror of the truck. So I need to put it in a position where I know that I'm not going to pull the Kia into it. So I'm leaning down here because I got the GoPro there. I'm not worried about the winch cable breaking or anything, just trying to stay out of view of the camera. Also, you can see the bumper, how it's bending up right there at the bottom. I've put J-hooks to the control arms and I'm just pulling with that cable. If this was a vehicle that I was actually doing a recovery on for a customer, I would be redirecting that line down to one of the D-hooks or something else on the truck, so I'd be pulling at a lower angle. Alright, you can see I have plenty of room around that tractor. That passenger rear wheel is now freed up, it is rolling. But that driver one, the driver rear wheel, I could never get that loose. It just would not come loose. Throw some straps on it. The 99 out of 100 times, especially if it's not like a drive wheel, if you drag the vehicle, you can break the rust on the rotor, between the drum and the rotor. Usually if it's like a rotor, it works a lot better, but if it's like a shoes inside a hub, then sometimes they get so seized up they don't ever come free. But you can hear the tire that is now dragging and it's squealing, and this one is so locked up that I try and I try and I try, and nothing I can do is getting it to break free. So you can see I'm trying to work it back and forth, trying to get that rust layer to break, and get that all that rust inside that brake area, the drum brakes, to release. So I'm here, I'm sitting working it back and forth a bunch of times. I'm trying, but No matter how much I try, it just will not go. Sometimes if you go back and forth, you can kind of work it and it'll loosen up. I really don't want to throw dollies on this thing. It's already like 3 a.m. at this point, and I am super tired. I've still got an hour drive just to go drop this thing off, and then an hour drive home after that. So after it won't free up, I'm just like, all right, let's just yeet it for another eighth of a mile or so and see if it'll free up. And I'm driving on the gravel just because the noise of the tire, I'm not trying to disturb anybody. It's a lot quieter just to drag it through the gravel. I want to get it away from where the houses are. But no luck. It just will not go. This is one of the most stuck tires I have ever towed. So basically every single car tonight required dollies. And when I went to get this Kia, I noticed that this vehicle was in the predicament it's in, and there was also this semi that you'll see was also into the woods. So by the time I returned, they had pulled the semi out, but this white car was still up there, stuck on the pole. So they're gonna have a interesting time getting that out. And then slowly over the course of the night, I had this hydraulic line, and the crimped fitting there was developing a leak, and it was just getting worse and worse. But luckily it held out, and I was able to drop my last car. But it definitely needs to be fixed before my next job.